Hi, my name's Andy Sykes. I'm an illustrator and animator, and I teach animation at universities here in the UK. Why not check out my website, hexjibber.com, where you can find animation and illustration by me, as well as more lessons in Flash and After Effects. Cheers! Hi, and welcome to another one of my elemental animation tutorials using After Effects and Flash. Here we've got some dust, which kind of flies around as if it were moving sort of behind a very fast moving object, or if your character was doing like some kind of amazing powerful thing, you might want some kind of dust cloud behind them. If you haven't watched my introduction to the wave warp effect, please do check that out. If you don't know how to use After Effects, I've got loads of tutorials on how to use it, so I recommend you check all of those out before you watch this. Okay, so here we go. We've got two shape layers. We've got a grey one, and we've got this kind of circle over the top. If I hide that, you can see that all that circle is doing is hiding this kind of mess underneath, because we want a nice kind of smooth curve over the bottom of our smoke. That's why I've chosen it. You could have a square bottom by drawing a square over the top, but I've chosen a circle because I like this kind of rounded bottom, this nice curve. So let's take a look at what effects we've used. Might just rename this one grey and this one mask so that we know what we're doing. So this grey, if we look in the effects controls, we've got a wave warp and we've got posterized time. So this should be familiar if you watched my introduction to wave warp. So we've got the frame rate running at 8 frames a second. If I turn this wave warp off, so this is very similar to my tutorial on how to create the crest of a wave, as if a boat was cutting through the water. It's the same shape. I've drawn it with a pen tool. It's got a kind of rounded top and a straight bottom. And I've used the Bezier handles on my shape to get that kind of point here. So the smooth noise can move up towards the top and then kind of taper off towards the bottom. So if I turn the wave warp back on, you can see that I've used smooth noise to get this very kind of random shape, but it's smooth so it looks more natural, it looks a bit more like dust. I've got a wave height of minus 336. If I pull it down, you can see that it gets a lot less exaggerated, and then you can push it up even further if you wanted, but the further you shove it up, the more kind of areas of white you can find underneath. That's really up to you. So I'm going to leave it on minus 336. The wave width is 119. You could make it bigger or smaller depending on what you want. The direction is 47. I've just worked out that that's the best one for this particular example. Again, I encourage you to play about with that when you're making your own. The wave speed is quite fast. It's minus 1.8, so it's moving relatively quickly towards the left. So if we look, it's moving towards the left rather than the right. Negative values move to the left, positive values move to the right. The anti-aliasing quality is high, and then again, like I mentioned, we've got this posterized time. It's really as simple as that. So let's just do a run preview and check out what it looks like. And you can see we've got this nice loop of that kind of spiky dust. I've already shortened my work area down because we're using a wave speed of minus 1.8. It's moving faster than a lot of the other examples I've done. Normally, the loop is 1 frame before 1 second, but because this is quite a bit faster, it's actually only 14 frames long. So you can see that's just less than a second. When you're doing yours, you'll be able to find where the loop is. You just need to look for a frame that's exactly the same as the first frame in your sequence, and then go 1 back so you don't get duplication of frames. So what I can do now is I can export this as a PNG sequence by adding it to the media encoder queue if I'm using CC, or add it to the render queue if I'm using CS6, and export as a PNG sequence at 25 frames a second. So if any of that's unfamiliar, again, I encourage you to check out my introduction to the wave warp effects to get more detail on how to do that. So let's jump into Flash and take a look at what I've done. So what we've got here is we've got a graphic symbol on the timeline. If I double click on that, you can see that I've broken those 14 frames up into just kind of 10 here. And each keyframe is lasting for 2 frames each. I've got my bitmap and I've traced bitmap by going to modify, bitmap, trace bitmap. And again, I go over all of that in my intro to Wave Warp. And all I've done is, using the lasso tool, I've created some kind of cell shading to just give it a bit more of a kind of anime 3D effect. Make sure you check out my cell shading tutorial to show you how to do that. So all you have to do is select part of the shape, change the color. So what I've done here is I've selected parts of the outline and changed it to a darker or a lighter color. You can see that the dark is on this side and it's as if the light is coming from this side. So I've highlighted these areas here. And I've added some extra bits of sort of dust and dirt flying off. It's a good idea to make them, if they start here and then move down slowly, like that. So there you go, you've got a really nice looping animation of some very fast moving dirt. Have a go yourself, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Hey, thanks for checking out this tutorial. Next up, why not take a look at my website, hexjibber.com, where you can find out more about my self-published books, the Hexjibber Colouring and Activity book, and the Hexjibber Anti-Revision book. They're both suitable for kids and adults alike, and are well worth checking out.